So welcome everybody. My name is Crystal Hooper. I'm the co-chair for the NJALA and I work for the Somerset County Library System. It's exciting for me today to introduce you to one of my colleagues and some of yours, Miss Cassandra Collucci, and she's going to talk to us today about why it's so hard to absorb information right now. While the presentation is going on, you can mute yourselves. If you want to use the video, you can. Otherwise, please just keep your questions into the chat box and we'll address those at the end. Cassie, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Great, thanks so much, Crystal. I appreciate the opportunity to chat with everyone today on this particular topic. So I was going to run this as a poll. I think I'm actually just going to throw it into the chat. And if you are comfortable with all the Zoom features, so this is also a good way to test and make sure you are comfortable with those Zoom features. So we will be using the chat today. So have your keyboard ready. You do not need to turn on your camera if you do not want to turn on your camera. So the question I'm going to ask you is, how distracted do you feel today? So I want to welcome you to this session, and we're going to cover a lot of different things. So A, B, or C. So how distracted do you feel today? Are you in the squirrel mindset where you're super duper distracted? And this could be because you have a lot of things going on around you. B, I only have 5 tabs open on my computer right now, so I'm only moderately distracted. Or are you C, I've got my tea and my quiet place. I am totally not distracted. I'm ready to jump in. So if anyone feels comfortable adding that into the chat, it'd be great to know where everybody's at today. Squirrel, definitely squirrel. Very good. I hear you. A lot of B's. Let's see, B, okay. Oh, very good. Oh, Sue Kane, she's an A. Okay, I hear you. Yeah, so we don't really have, I don't see any C. So what we're going to be talking about is like, this is kind of just the general environment that we are now existing in. And what I want everybody to come away with at the end of this presentation, you can just tune out at this point now, is we're all in this together and we're all kind of feeling the same way. And it's really okay. It's very normal. So we're done now. No, I'm just kidding. All right, let's jump in. And I want to talk a little bit about me. So as Crystal said, my name is Cassandra Collucci. I am currently working as the training manager at the Somerset County Library System, and I've been in this role for about 5 years. This presentation, like I said, is really ripped from the headlines for me. A lot of the past year has been a lot of overcommitting, moments of feeling overwhelmed, lack of information retention. And so as I speak to a lot of the different things that I'll be covering in this session, is also know that I'm speaking to myself. I'm not trying to put things on other people. This is really where I've also been at in the past year and a half or so. And a lot of the tools that I used to rely on before aren't quite cutting it right now, and understanding more about myself has really helped me to get more focused, and also has allowed me to be more compassionate towards myself, which is very important, and also towards others. So all the other stuff, you know, training manager. I used to be a librarian, worked at small libraries, did teen services, adult services, collection development. And I've been at Somerset County Library System for a long time now. So that's just the basics, who I am. So what should you expect from this session? So when I was putting this presentation together, I kind of thought of it as a couple, I shouldn't say a bunch, you're not going to be here for like hours and hours, a few mini sessions. This is really what I have connected with most when participating in online learning, is to have kind of these little snapshots of learning, and hopefully you'll be able to take away a couple pieces. You don't need to have the entire presentation memorized, and maybe only parts of it will be very useful for you. And a lot of that is because I know for myself, and I'll speak to my own personal experience a lot, is that my attention span just isn't that great with webinars and with online learning in general, especially with everything, distractions happening, all the different opportunities we've had to learn online. So just think of this as like a bunch of mini sessions together. So I've broken it into a couple of pieces. Oh well, we'll get there. So how adults learn, and understanding your brain and stress, and action items and tools to get you refocused. So in the chat, if you haven't already introduced yourself, could you just put in where you work, and if you are working in person at a library or wherever it is that you happen to be working at, or if you're still working from home. Could you put that in the chat? I see in the library today. I know for myself, I was a hybrid work from home and in person. And as of the spring, full-time in the library. I'm in here with everyone. All right, I see in the library, working in person at the library, but you get to attend the event from home. That's great. Full-time in the library, working the desk today. So you're multitasking. There's a lot of things going on with Andreas. That's great. Great, thank you so much. You can keep introducing if you want. It'll help you know who's in the session and get to know each other a little bit better. I had jumped ahead for a little second. So just to recap, this is what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about how you absorb information in your brain under stress. And then we're going to talk about some tools to help get you focused. All right, so we're going to start with a little story time. This is what we do in libraries. So it's that time. So set the scene. You can close your eyes as I'm telling the story. I'm sure you will be able to completely visualize everything I'm going to share in this story time. It's that time in June when all the kids are finishing up the school year, and like every year, the library is hosting summer reading. You've kept up on all your emails, attended every staff meeting, which happened to be online, and watched training sessions on how to use your new online registering system. You're already ready for your shift at the desk to start. The launch day arrives. You've been feeling a little anxious. There have been a lot of changes happening in the library over the past year, and even with even more staffing changes on top of that. You have new protocols to follow, and you start thinking about all the families that will potentially come in. And as you stand at the service desk and get ready to help patrons and talk about summer reading changes and get people registered and do all the things and the phones are ringing, your mind blanks. What was the name of that site you were using to register people? The link has to be saved somewhere, right? Is it in the browser toolbar? Is it on the website? Is it on your desktop? Do I even remember how to use the site to register anyone? All the information you thought you had in your head magically vanishes from your mental repository. All your learning is gone. This might even sound familiar, maybe if you go back in time a little bit to high school, or if you went to college or community college or took other continuing education classes, that moment of like right before the test, you did all this work and it's all just gone. So this story may ring true, and I hope it doesn't bring anyone unpleasant flashbacks, of course. Or maybe you're still mentally processing going from regular library services to closures, to hands-free material pickups, to virtual reference and customer service, then back to in-person everything. So when you sit down to digest new information, whether it's a new procedure, a new meeting, a new library product, maybe it's sitting down for a webinar, you may feel like you just can't absorb the information and you just can't learn anymore. You're just done. Yeah, all of those things pop up. So when I was going through that story, did anyone identify with any of the things that happened in that little short story? And was there anything in particular that popped out to you as challenges? I know I'm asking questions. Oh, it's the worst. It's the worst kind of webinar when people ask questions. It's okay. You can throw it in the chat if you want to. If not, I'll just keep talking because that's what I do. So the big ones that really came up in that particular story is, oh, we got some. Oh, Sloan, yeah, Sloan works in youth services, and there was just so much all at once. Absolutely. Remembering the things off the top of your head for certain things. Yes, absolutely. I'll just wait another second to see if there's anything else that pops up. But the big ones that I was thinking about when I was thinking about this particular scenario was dealing with change and learning on top of going through all those changes that are happening, with overload and being overwhelmed, as well as the impact of stress and anxiety on your brain's ability to pull up details and information. It's a lot. I'm sure this is This is happening to all of us. So don't feel badly. It's common, and adults also learn and retain information in normal times in interesting ways. And so we'll talk about that. But also in stressful times, there's a little bit more that comes into play as well. So let's talk about the way people learn. Oh, I see some great chats came in too. So many changes, hard to remember where the procedure is located, especially if you don't use it often, and trying to remember where information is stored. Is it in my email? Is it on the internet? Where could it possibly be? Yes, absolutely. So we're going to jump into talking about how you learn. So I found, I used to run, when we were doing things in person, a train the trainer session for our staff that have to do presentation for other staff. And it's not just supervisors. Knowing how to train people is really important for supervisors, obviously, but it also works for anyone who's kind of like a subject area expert. You could be a subject area expert on using your catalog system or checking materials out. If you're the person that people end up saying like, I don't know how to use this new thing. Do you know how to do it? You end up becoming a trainer. So I found that when talking to people that are going to be training other people, it's really interesting to know how you learn and absorb information yourself. And you may be familiar with how people engage and absorb information, and traditionally, you will hear of these standard learning styles. These probably all look very familiar. Visual, so that's your charts, your videos, your drawings. Auditory, that's listening, your songs, your music, your poetry. People use that a lot for especially memory. Reading and writing, that's your books, magazines, instruction manuals. And your kinesthetic, that's your movement, touch, and tactile sense. So there's a lot involved in how information takes root in your brain and how it then stays in there. We're very complex, and depending on the situation and information you need to take in, some ways of learning will help more than others. So even to just jump in even more, just to show the complexity of learning styles, is you're generally not just one. Depending on the situation, you could be multiple. There may be multiple learning styles that come into play that really help things to take root in your brain. So it is understandable if someone needs some time alone. You can see these additional learning styles listed. Our primary ones are at the top, but there's these other interesting ones too, like social, like you learn better with a group, or maybe you're solitary and you want to be by yourself to look at a thing, or maybe it's a little bit of everything. You want to sit by yourself for a little bit, read the thing, maybe go and talk to someone afterwards, run it through it, maybe draw a chart. So a lot of times, it could be multiple things in order for the information to stick in your head. For me personally, when I'm trying to absorb something new, I'm kind of a social learner, and I'm a little annoying about it too, because I love to be able to bounce ideas off of people and map it out and see what putting it into action will actually look like. And this definitely puts me in the physical kinesthetic learning style. Oop. This is what happens when you have two monitors running. It doesn't know where it wants you to be. Okay, here we go. So I know when we run our circulation forms for our staff each year, when they've been in person, our staff always request that we act out and demonstrate how a new process works. And being able to see things in action and even able to participate in testing a new thing out helps a lot in retaining information. So that's pulling in the combination factor. Are you interested? If you're interested in learning about your primary learning style, you are welcome to take the VARC questionnaire. It is very interesting. You could jump in and take a look at that right now if you are. If you're the sort of person who has multiple tabs open anyway, you are more than welcome to take a look and answer some of those questions. And as you go about, and if you're going to take that questionnaire, it's okay to check off on multiple items. So if they give you a particular scenario and they're saying, would you want to read this? Would you want to see this mapped out? Would you want someone to explain it? If you want all the things, check off all the things. And what that questionnaire will do, it will let you know what your primary learning method is that you probably go to the most, but then it'll also rank all the other learning styles as well, so you can see where it all lined up. So you can take a look on what works for you and how maybe what would help you absorb information. And it could help you in the future to know that you completely can't depend on reading an email for information. You may need to talk it over, or maybe write something out, or use colors and drawing and art in order to really absorb important information, maybe not information that's like temporary or just like an FYI, but if you really have to sit down and absorb information, it's an interesting thing to know. Adults also learn through a lens of experience, of previous experience, and we learn best when we use all of our senses. If you find you're having difficulty retaining information, it's worthwhile to mix it up and connect it to your lives. You can find your why, like why it's important to you, why it's of value, why it's of purpose to you. And we'll talk a little bit about that later on, depending on how much time we have. I don't want to dig in too deep into that. But if anyone jumped onto the VARC questionnaire and they found out what their primary learning style was, you're more than welcome to throw that in the chat. It's always an interesting thing to see where everybody else hits on that scale. So mine was definitely the physical kinesthetic. That is completely me. But maybe you're more of a visual or verbal or auditory. So if you want to do that, you're welcome to. I'm now going to start jumping in and connecting how your learning style and how this feeling of overload and what happens to your brain. So we're going to start with talking a little bit about understanding our brains. So I came across some great books and a really great article by John Medina. He wrote a book called Brain Rules, and this particular article is called Your Brain. So I like to keep things simplified because there's a lot of information out there. It can get a little complicated. So I'm going to go through some of his brain rules that are specifically geared towards work and learning at work and performing at work. So the first thing he talks about is every brain is wired differently. And this is very clear if you took that learning style test. But did you know that what you do and learn in life physically changes what your brain looks like? We just looked at a few categories of learning styles, but there can be so many more variations. No two people have the same brain, not even twins. And this means every learner's brain, every employee's brain, and every patron's brain is wired completely differently. The other fun thing that that came up in his list of our brain rules is we don't pay attention to boring things. I'm just going to stop there and pause. Like, we do not pay attention to boring things. We tune out, we multitask, we open our tabs, we pull up our phones. We don't pay attention to boring things. But what we do pay attention to is profoundly influenced by memory. Our previous experiences, just like we talked about in adult learning, our previous experiences predict where we should pay attention. And our culture matters too in that. We pay attention to things like emotions and threats. So for instance, regardless of who you are, the brain pays a great deal of attention to the question, have I seen this before? Because it wants to go through that easy path for the way the brain works. Meanwhile, mounting evidence also reveals that the brain is not really capable of multitasking. So even though we are prone to having all those tabs open, our brain really doesn't absorb much of anything when we're multitasking. This is not to make anyone feel guilty, of course. So like we can talk and we can breathe, but when it comes to at the same time, of course, that would be good. We all want to stay alive here. But when it comes to higher level tasks, we just can't do it. So the case in point for this that this John Medina used was driving while talking on a cell phone is like driving drunk. That's what they found. The brain is a sequential processor, and large fractions of a second are consumed every time the brain switches tasks. And this is why cell phone talkers are half a second slower to hit the brakes and get in more wrecks. So that's like an extreme example. Like obviously when you're working at the library and you're answering a phone, but you're also in someone's record and you're also seeing an email come through, like it's not as dire as texting while driving, which is, we know that's illegal. We know not to do that. But also keeping in mind that if you're answering the phone, but you're also trying to maybe take care of the patron in front of you, that you might not be answering the question on the phone properly. You might not be hearing the question right if you have multiple things going on. Unfortunately, most workplaces kind of are set up to encourage multitasking. It's just what happens, right, with staffing and whatnot. But in general, like you can walk into an office and you'll see people sending email, answering their phone, doing some instant messaging, so on, all at the same time. And it shows that research shows that error rates increase 50% with multitasking, and it takes people twice as long to do things. So in a lot of cases, you can't really do anything about it. Like sometimes it's just, you need to get things done and this is just what it looks like, but also understand if you have that feeling of frustration and that feeling of overwhelm, you're trying to do too many things at one time. That's really the basics of what that comes down to. So to break up listening to me talk, I have this lovely video that goes over just that, the why don't we have to pay attention, or about the multitasking.
Attention. We know that people don't pay attention to boring things. That's brain rule number 4. We also know that the brain is riveted to information with a high emotional content. But what do we know about the brain's ability to multitask? A highly valued talent you supposedly see in the office every day.
Hey, dog, what's up? Ginger and Company. Oh, hello, Mr. Cat. Your invoice number, hello? Oh, hey, dog, what's up? Yeah, I'm just talking to dog online. Can you hold on a second? Dander and Company.
Whitehead, I need that report.
Yes, sir, I'm just finishing it now. Doggy dog. Hey, dog, what's up?
Whitehead, I need that report.
Dog, gotta go. Sorry. Dog, gotta go. Dog, gotta go. Mrs. Cat. Mrs. Cat? Mrs. Cat?
Whitehead?
The fact is, multitasking is a myth. Our brains can't do it. You simply become less efficient and more distracted, your error rate goes up 50%, and it takes you twice as long to do the same task. Listen to what Tim Jenkins has to say. He's the co-founder of Point B, a leading business consulting firm.
Well, I think there's a fallacy out there that the folks that can multitask are more effective. There are times when it's just important to focus on one thing. I think we also need to give people permission to check out of the communications network temporarily to get things done. Because when you're always on, when you're always online, you're always distracted, right? And the brain rule is telling us that that is a very unproductive mode to be in. And so the always online organization is actually the always unproductive organization.
And for those of us who use a cell phone while driving,
Here, I'll stop that right there. So it's all those distractions always being online. It's interesting to think about because that's how we pretty much stay connected with each other at work too, is through email, through chat, through all of that stuff. So how often are you able to disconnect and really sit down and concentrate on something new that's coming down the line to you? So does it always need to be staring at a website or staring at your email or staring at chat? Like, is it something that you can actually sit down and just read and take some notes on and concentrate on? And that comes into, it always does this with the videos, to talking about memory. So we're going to talk about our memory is weird and our brains are designed for continued learning and exploring. So my favorite thing to talk about when I talk about memory is thinking back to when you're younger. And you might be the sort of person, I know this is me, where you can clearly remember certain memories in certain songs from when you were younger, like those events and the music are closely linked together. If something like that pops into your mind that you don't mind sharing, you're more than welcome to throw that in the chat, even if it's the name of the song. And this is because of being in an emotionally heightened state during adolescence. So that's what makes it stick in your memory. It's that heightened state that you're in. So this is my favorite story to share. And I was actually telling my sister about this and she's like, oh my gosh, I remember that too. So it had to be 1987, 1988. I just got my very first Casio Walkman. It was very exciting. And my very first cassette tape from my father for Christmas, it was Beach Boys because that was his favorite. So obviously that's what I got for Christmas. I was very excited to have it, and I actually slept with it every night because I was so thrilled. And then on the other side of things, every night, my mom would read all of us. There was 5 kids in my family, so we'd all be up in our bunk beds, and she would sit down in the center of the room, and she would read us a book before we went to bed at night. Unfortunately, her winter selection for us was Old Yeller by Fred Gibson. So in my memory, I have a very strong memory of my mother reading us Old Yeller. And when she got to that scene, you know what scene I'm talking about with Old Yeller, the rabies, all that stuff, that was not happening for me. So I took out my Walkman, put it on, and was listening to In My Room by the Beach Boys. So now whenever anyone mentions Old Yeller or the Beach Boys, this is the immediate image that pops into my head. So whether it's traumatic or not, it was definitely an emotional state. And so it made those connections stick together. So you might have a song or an event that linked together like that from when you were younger. And it just shows like how interesting our memories are at different points in our life. So yeah, I see Crystal wrote a Backstreet Boys song, instantly think of elementary school friend who was obsessed with that group. Yeah, like you have those connection points that kind of live together. So what does that mean for us now? John Medina writes that our memories are volatile. So we now need as adults to repeat and remember. So while when we were younger, things just kind of stuck, things that we didn't necessarily want to stick, they just stick in our brains. Now we have to work harder. Adult memories are just different, and it usually requires a rush of adrenaline or repetition for information to actually stick. So that example from the story above that we talked about before, the employee read the information, went to the meeting, couldn't remember the product to register kids for summer reading. I bet that once they do that for the first time and they do it again throughout the day and throughout the week through repetition, the information is going to stick. So that's an example of repetition helping you out there. And also just our memories, like it's just harder right now. There's a tool that I know our library system subscribes to called Brain HQ that helps out with your memory a lot. And I know there's a lot of online tools that can also help you with your memory as well, if that's something that you want to dig into a little bit. The other bullet point I have here is our brains are designed to never stop learning and exploring. So the desire to explore never leaves us. So I know for myself, I felt like I was on hiatus for the past couple of months. Like I just didn't have it in me to continue to learn and to explore too much. And despite the classrooms and cubicles in which we are stuffed, we do have that desire to learn depending on like what situation we're in, right? So stress also has an impact on that as well. But in general, we are always interested in learning and exploring different things. So it might not necessarily be the work things. It could be other things, like if you have hobbies and other things that are interested to you, definitely keep exploring that. One example of this is babies. Babies are the model of how we really learn, and it's not by passive reaction to the environment, but by active testing through observation, hypothesis, experimentation, and conclusion making. Google does this too. They take to heart the power of exploration for 20% of their employees' time, which is amazing to me because I think about what my day and what my week, what my month looks like, and what our staff's daily workload looks like. Taking 20% of their time, employees may go where their mind asks them to go to do some exploration. The proof is in the bottom line. Fully 50% of new products, including Gmail and Google News, came from that 20% time. So our jobs might not be set up to do that, but it's also nice if you do have downtime in your life in general to have some time that you can set aside for just general exploration to try something new. So try new things. It really does help your brain out a lot. So let's now jump to talk about the impact of stress and how it changes the way we learn. So we're going to take a look at this old-timey brain slide here. So I've heard some really great presentations on change management, as well as learning and memory. And a lot of you have too, if you were at the Somerset County Library System, and how it impacts your brain. So you don't have, if you didn't listen to all of those webinars, you don't have to. I'm going to do a really quick synopsis for you and some articles, and this is the short version of it. Stress has a very big impact on your memory and your ability to learn. Your brain relies on different parts to work together to perform different tasks. And when one part of your brain is engaged in working, your brain may not have much energy to handle other tasks. So for example, if you're in a dangerous or emotionally taxing situation, your amygdala, it's right in there, the part of your brain that governs your survival instincts takes over, leaving the parts of your brain that stores memories and performs higher order tasks with less energy and ability to get their own jobs done. This is why you might be more forgetful when you're under stress, or you may experience memory lapses under trauma. And we have certainly had a lot of challenging things that have happened over a period of time, whether it was short-term stress or longer-term stress. It definitely has an impact on what you're able to retain. So with that, how do you take action? Like, how do you take action to escape that feeling of overload now that we understand a little bit more about what's going on in our brain, how we're learning, how that impacts everything that we're doing? So let's just jump into taking some action. Some important information on this topic of not being able to focus right now. We learn in different ways and our memories can be fickle. I know that like I said, over the past 18 months, there's been a lot of changes. There's been a lot of challenges. Motivation might be lower. Our brains probably need a little bit more stimulus with the exploration factor to really get going again. And this, like I said, is the big reason why it's more difficult to absorb that information. So we're going to take a look at getting that information to stick, setting meaningful goals, which is finding your why. We're not going to go too deep into that, but I have some information if you're interested in exploring that a little bit more, and some additional strategies that hopefully will be helpful to you. And if you have any strategies that you use, it'd be a great time. We'll have some time to share. All right, so getting that information to stick. So alertness and focus are the triggers to start learning something new, but actually getting that information to be absorbed into your brain is different. So that happens during times of recovery. So what do you think of when I say during times of recovery? What do you think that means? If anyone still is has their keyboard handy and willing to throw something in the chat. What does recovery mean to you? Not doing anything, reflection. Absolutely. It also means getting sleep. Downtime before bed. Yes, absolutely. Tuning out, sleep. Yes, 100%. That sitting quietly, maybe meditation, go for a walk without distractions. Don't put an audiobook on when you go for a walk. Like if you really need that time to disconnect and let information to absorb into your brain, go quietly. Like don't power walk, like just relax and go for a short walk. Yes. Oh, sorry. Went too fast on that one. I'm just checking the chat to make sure there was nothing else that popped in. But absolutely, if you want information to stick, your brain needs downtime. Absolutely. It also means like stepping away from your electronic devices, which is super hard. Maybe before bedtime. I know this comes up in like every wellness webinar I think I've been to in the past year, is like, when do you turn off your phone before you go to bed? Or maybe you don't. Maybe you're staring at it and you're like falling asleep and then you put it down. Like having your time to have that rest and relaxation time is really important. And that's going to help you absorb information. Finding your why. Now, has anyone heard of finding your why? Have you heard of Simon Sinek? His information has been around for a while. So the idea behind finding your why is it helps you connect with the reason and the purpose for why you're doing what you're doing. So for an example, in the library world, we would think of that as your elevator pitch, finding your why, like why it's important that we do what we do. It's important because we are a community center. It's important because we give access to things that people might not necessarily be able to have on their own if they were to do it as an individual. So finding the importance of the information that you're learning and how that applies to your life really does help you connect with that information and to find your purpose. And that gives you that extra added motivation when you're feeling overwhelmed as well. So ultimately helps you tap into your purpose during difficult times too. So when you know why you're doing a thing, it really, really helps out. And it gives you extra energy and alertness as well. So you might want to ask yourself, what are you passionate about? And how does that actually relate to what you do at work? Like, do they tie together? Or if it doesn't, like, why are you doing what you're doing in regards to the impact on your family or your friends or on yourself? So knowing how that all those tie together really helps you know why you're doing what you're doing and why it's important. And that will help the information stick, or at least give you the motivation to sit down and try to learn the new thing. It helps you accomplish goals if you're looking to try something new. And like I said, if you wanted to dig deeper, you can jump into that golden circle model that I have over here with the link to the video. You don't have to read the book, you can just watch the video. It's very, very motivating and super interesting. And it goes into the whole neuroscience behind that golden circle theory and how humans respond best when messages and communication happens with their parts of your brain that controls emotion and behavior and decision making. It is really interesting, but if it's not your thing, we can just keep going on. But if you want to dig deeper, I do have a PDF of these slides, so you can go back and watch that video if it's something you're interested in. So let's just jump into some actionable strategies. So the best thing you can do for yourself in combating stress and difficulties absorbing new information is really, like I said before, is to get rest. This could be making sure you get 7 to 8 hours of sleep at night. Does anyone actually do that? Or is everybody hitting on that 4 to 5 hour mark? So getting, like, you know, your body, so maybe 8 hours is too much, but if you're not getting enough sleep, that's going to be a huge impact. Getting your sleep at night, meditating, having quiet time to just decompress is really important. Try going tech-free if you can. I know it's a little bit difficult, but when you're overwhelmed, there's something super nice, let's see if I can do this, about having your calendar as paper, right? To be able to sit down and like design your calendar, write out your to-do on paper, and not always have to deal with an electronic calendar. It keeps you from the email always popping up into your face if you can actually sit down and write out your to-do list or work on a calendar that's paper. So I know this is like going back in time, like everybody's always looking for those electronic things that can help you manage your time. But when you're feeling stressed, like sometimes, like I really love my paper calendar because I can also be artistic with it. So I can use my markers, I can use colors, I can use different things. And so it allows my brain to work in different ways, which definitely helps. It definitely has like a calming effect to it as well. Maybe it's also taking breaks from social media. So maybe you only give yourself certain time during the day to check social media, so you're not on it all the time. All these things super helpful potentially. The other thing is use headphones if you can. So especially if you're working in more of a communal workspace, putting the headphones on really do help you focus, but of course not when you're on a desk shift. Please don't do that. That's not great customer service. But if you have to go and sit and actually work on a task, even if you're not listening to anything, put the headphones on. It'll help you focus. If you do need music to help you focus, I know it's like a big, maybe it's just a big thing new to me right now, but you can listen. There's certain music out there that's at a certain hertz that actually helps you with calming, with concentration. And so looking into that could be something that would be useful and helpful as well. Using a timer for focus productivity if you have a lot to get done. So, and this could be something that might be useful for when you're at home as well. So being able to break your to-do list into manageable increments and then take a couple minute breaks. So there's this one method called the Pomodoro method where you work in 25-minute increments and then you take a 5-minute break. So it helps you really divide your time out. So if you have a ton of things to do, especially if you're at home, it's helpful to be like, okay, I'm only putting 25 minutes towards this particular task, and then I'm going to take a break. Maybe that's my social media break. Maybe that's when I check email or do whatever. And then I'm going to do something else for 25 minutes. Oh, great meditation videos. Yes, awesome. I love that. Something else that would be helpful is to remember to eat and to hydrate. A lot of people don't drink enough. So keeping on top of eating those healthy, like brain food sort of things and staying hydrated definitely helps you in times of stress as well. It helps your brain function. And we all need more than just coffee, which is very hard for me to say, but we do need more than just coffee to keep going each day. Take your breaks. Take your breaks, right? I'm saying that to myself too. So to sync, consolidate, and absorb information, your brain needs downtime and rest. So when you have that moment to take a break, step away from whatever it is you're doing, like walk away from your desk if you have a break time, go look at a magazine, go for a walk, do something active. Take yourself out of the thing that you're hyper focused on, and that's going to give you that downtime that your brain needs as well. And if you find you're the sort of person who takes on too much, realize that in times of stress, there is an extra layer of fatigue. So ask your colleagues for help if there's just too much on your plate. Brainstorm with your supervisor. And if you find that absorbing information and remembering all the things is just overwhelming and hard, sometimes you just need to give yourself some grace and just step away from some things. And if you really need help, there's a lot of really great help out there just in the medical field. If you feel like everything is just too overwhelming and it's not just the tasks that you have to get done for work, it's just things in general. I actually had just gotten an email this morning from our healthcare provider that was pretty much saying that exact same thing. Like there's 50% of the entire population in the United States right now, it's feeling stressed and overwhelmed. And there's resources out there to help you. So if it's more than just some time management things and creating great habits, if it's more than that, like there is help out there. And oh yes, going back to meditation, awesome. So in reflection here, so do any of the strategies that I just talked about sound interesting, or is there anything that you're currently doing that is really helpful to you when you're going through these moments of having difficulty focusing, having difficulty absorbing new information, just having difficulty processing new information? Like, what is it that you do? Oh yes, I see. It can be hard to step away from a task if you suffer from completionism. Yes, absolutely. Oh, cool. I see. I'm going to try the headphones when not at the desk. Especially, I mean, it's hard if we're like close to our coworkers and we're all friendly and we like to chat. So it's hard to, the headphones really help with that. Like I need to focus right now, especially if you're in the communal workspace. So I don't know if Ocean County, I know we had someone from Ocean County in, but I know that we have that Brain HQ tool too. So if you feel like memory is like a big thing for you, that they actually have some really great training exercises that are like games that are really fun and they actually help you focus too. So that's a fun little thing. Does anyone have any questions for me? Oh, I see another chat came through. When in a virtual class, if I knit or do some other craft, I find I absorb the information more. It's like focusing on one thing hard helps the other stuff come in. Yeah, I mean, this just goes to show like brains work differently. Like I would probably be like, I would have just a giant knot of yarn in front of me if that were me, but like our brains are all so unique, which is really cool. So it is about finding what works for you. And that's great. Like I know some people who doodle and they do beautiful drawings while absorbing information. So multitasking, while in general they say multitasking doesn't work, maybe it depends on the type of multitasking too. All right, well, if there's no questions, this is me. I am Cassandra Collucci. This is my contact information. And if you have any questions or comments or whatever it is, you are more than welcome to send me an email. And I do have my slide deck, but I'll share that with Crystal to share out, because right now it looks like when I click on file share, it wants me to save from Google Drive and I downloaded it to my computer. So that's not going to work right now.
Yep, I will send out a survey to everyone and I will include any links that were shared today and I'll put your slides in there too.
Yeah. Even better, because librarian must have my resource list. So I have all the, if you're interested in any of the articles or any of the books that I referenced, all that information is on my final slide.
I want to give everybody enough time to pipe up on the mic or think and read what they wrote in the chat before they send it. So we're going to just hang out for a bit. And while you guys are getting those things put together, I just want to remind you of other NJALA events that are coming up. On the 28th, we're going to have a time for you to network with other library assistants, and we're going to have a costume contest in honor of Halloween. So please come with cameras ready, or at least a picture of what your costume is so you can share it with us. And then on the 11th of November, we're going to talk about find free libraries. So I see one question in the chat.
What is multimodal? Yes, that is the combination. That's the combinational of learning types.
Crystal, I had a question for you, actually. The event, the Halloween event, it was put out through SCLSNJ's. I think actually Cassie sent it out, but the sign up link wasn't working. Is there any way I could get another one of those?
Yep, I will share it with you directly. I'll put it in the link for the summary link from today's session, and then I'll make sure that it's fixed on our website too. Thank you.
Cool, thank you.
I don't see any other questions. Lots of praise. Thank you, Cassie, in the chat.
Hopefully I didn't overwhelm you. Like sometimes it's hard, like when you're putting information together, you're like, oh, this is interesting information. Oh, this is interesting.
Right.
So
yeah,
paring it down is always